Hey everyone, happy Slump Wednesday, right? Usually it's Hump Wednesday, but today's Slump Wednesday because Bitcoin was down. Miners actually didn't do too bad today. They were down in the beginning, but they kind of picked up towards the end of the day, so that was kind of nice to see. And Bitcoin obviously went below our 57,000 mark, which we kind of thought it would because it's been battling with that prior support. We'll get into all that. Obviously, a lot of you guys right now are possibly in the red if you didn't dollar cost average in over a longer period of time. If you bought in the last couple of months, you're probably in the red. I feel for you guys. I know how that feels. I did that in 2022. Started buying the miners, Cleanspark, Bitfarms at that point at $9 for Cleanspark, $5 for Bitfarms. I was in the red for well over a year, like down 60, 80% on both of those guys at one point. So I definitely feel for everybody here that's watching now and invested in the miners. It's painful. I get it. But there's ways to go about it. But here's what we got today. Today we're going to take a look at Bitfarms. We're going to take a look at Cipher. We're going to take a look at Riot, their Q1 results, which were actually pretty good. They were actually really good, actually. There's a lot of good stuff in there. And there's really one thing that I want to nitpick here. And I'll get into all that later on here. So we'll get into all this. It's going to be a little bit longer because we have quite a few things to go over. But we'll get through it and then save your questions till the end. We'll get into all those at the end for the Q&A. Okay, so as always, you guys know the drill here. This is not financial advice for entertainment only. Please do your own research. I'm investing in finding coins and companies for full disclosure. If you enjoy this type of content, hit the like button, subscribe. Helps me out tremendously, obviously. And corrections will be posted to Discord, YouTube, and Twitter. And I am not paid by any mining company for full disclosure right now, okay? Let's take a look at Bitcoin here, what's going on with it. And we can see here that we've obviously had a downtrend, right? We're having a correction, basically. We have these from time to time. If we look at it from the top to the bottom here, we're down like 22, 23% on it, right? We saw that happening throughout last year, 2023, where we had multiple events where Bitcoin went nicely up, and then we had a correction of about 20% roughly. So that kind of gives me a little bit of a hope that maybe this is potentially the bottom, if not. But I was saying in previous videos last week, prior weeks to that as well, we had our support here right around 61,000, right? We saw it come down to that, touch it a couple of times here. I said, the more times it touches it, the more likely that we are to fall below it. And sure enough, we obviously had that happen in the last 2 days or so. So today we obviously had we were down at the end of the day, 3.89% on the day, but we were down like almost 6% in total before it started to bounce back up a little bit above our support here, which I have at 57,500 right now. And we are right now below it a little bit here. It's not that bad, right? Corrections are due. We need them from time to time to obviously have a healthy bull run going forward. And if obviously this doesn't hold here at 57,500, our next support would possibly be at like right around the 53,700 mark, 600 mark, somewhere right around there is our next support, where we have had pretty good support in the past at least. Okay, so that's kind of what we're going by here. Now, for all of you guys that just got in, in the last couple of weeks, couple of months here, where Bitcoin was at 70,000 and the miners were up much higher, I definitely feel for you. I know what it feels like to be down. But if you have a conviction in Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners that you're invested in, the only thing I can say, the only thing that's saved me at least is dollar cost averaging into them, right? Currently, I'm still actually in the green on Bitfarms. I think I'm still in the green on IREN as well. I'm definitely in the green on Cleanspark because I dollar cost averaged down when the prices were so much lower, right? I bought at a much higher price, but I continued to dollar cost average into them, and I haven't sold anything in the last basically 2.5 years roughly, right? I started dollar cost averaging in the January of 2022. So it's been a long time, right? But I didn't know where the bottom was going to be yet. And that's one of the things that with the miners is, especially after the bull cycle that we had in 2021, I didn't know where the bottom was going to be yet. And I wanted to get into miners because I knew that eventually some of these guys will do really well. Based on my metrics, I got into Cleanspark, Bitfarms, and now I got into IREN as well, based on what I'm seeing here. So it's obviously not, what's the best way I can say it? It's not opportune, or it's not the ideal situation that we're in right now, especially if you got in within the last couple of weeks, couple of months on them. But if you believe in Bitcoin going up much higher than where it is right now, right? We peaked at here on Bitcoin at 73,835 here through Coinbase. If you believe Bitcoin's going to go at least to 150,000, the miners are right now looking very, very cheap in my my determination right now. Right. Does that mean that we couldn't go down even more? We can. Obviously, some are saying that Bitcoin could potentially go down even more. Some are saying that we could get down to 53,000 and 50,000 as well, right? 52, 53, somewhere around there, depending on where Bitcoin holds. If that is the case, at that point, if Bitcoin goes down to like 52,000, we're looking at a 30% correction, which we haven't seen in the last year or so, year and a half, right? We saw those in prior cycles, yes, but we haven't seen this in the current cycle that we're in right now. So that's obviously interesting here. But like I said, if this doesn't hold here, if we bounce off of this potentially, and that might be the bottom here right now, but I just don't know that. So I'm actually looking to buy some more. I did buy, what did I buy? Last week or the week prior, I bought some more shares in Bitfarms and IREN. I'm looking to do the same thing. The only thing is I got to pay my property taxes at the end of May. So I need to keep some cash on the side here to pay for that. Otherwise, I'd be going even harder right now because the prices in the miners are looking really, really, really low right now. And we have that because the miners are a leverage play on Bitcoin, basically, right? Bitcoin goes up, miners do X better. Bitcoin comes down, the miners do X worse going forward. So keep that in mind as always. And if you can, dollar cost average into them. Don't FOMO into them. That is the worst thing you can do is FOMOing into these miners here, especially like right around 73,000 with Bitcoin. That's the worst time you can possibly get into it. The best time is on the dips, right? Buy on the red days. Be greedy when others are fearful. Be fearful when others are greedy. So when things are going up, be fearful at that point, right? And there's a lot of traders that I listen to on Spaces. A is one of them. Crypto 2024 is another one, right? Where they trade these. I don't have time to trade them. I just dollar cost average in because I have a conviction in a lot of these guys here that they will do much better going forward, especially if Bitcoin price goes up to 150,000, 200,000, if it goes even more than that. My original thesis was that Bitcoin's going to get to 280,000 this cycle, and we'll see if we get close to that, right? I think we'll get close to that. Maybe we'll go up a little bit above it, but we'll see. But just obviously be mindful of that and just know that these are very volatile stocks that you get into here, right? So as always, do your own due diligence on these things and then only invest what you're willing to invest in this, right? Because they are so volatile. Okay. So that's Bitcoin in a nutshell, basically right now. Right now we're sitting at our support here. If it falls below it, our next possible support would be at 53,000 something, right? As far as the miners today, in the morning, I mean, they were all red here. You could see that throughout the day. It was tough looking at them. But if you're a longer term investor a little bit, if you're not trading these, I mean, even if you're trading these, if you're trading these like daily or something like that, or trading the swings on the charts, right? I mean, this is like heaven for you guys. I don't do that. I just kind of look at the buying opportunities. If I can buy these shares at a much lower price, that is all gravy for me. But yeah, that's it. So looking at these, I mean, you can see how they actually did pretty good today. I mean, Mawson, for whatever reason, was up 9.48% today. So I think there's some manipulation happening with Mawson. But the other stocks were up 3, 4, 2%, 1%. The others were down a little bit on the day. And, I would have expected more miners to be in the red, but they actually kind of reversed throughout the middle of the day here, which is kind of nice to see that maybe investors think that maybe this is the bottom here. Okay, that's kind of one of the things I'm looking at here. If Bitcoin's going down, what are the miners doing? If miners are starting to kind of rebound and get into the green, that might be a slight signal for me that says we might be close to the bottom here. Okay, all right, so that's it for that. One other thing to look at here is the Bitcoin hash price index. We are definitely going much, much lower here on the hash price for the miners. The lower the hash price is, obviously, the less profitable the miners are. And at that point, we could see, obviously, some miners, for today, it was at $44.63 USD petahash per day, right? So that's pretty low. It's basically less than half of where we were just at the, at the halving event, which we were at $104. So the miners that have older equipment, things like that, we might start seeing the network hash rate kind of come down a little bit eventually. I don't know when that's going to happen, but I'm guessing it will happen in the next couple days, couple weeks. We might see maybe a 5% reduction in the network hash rate to 10%, depending on where Bitcoin price goes. If Bitcoin price goes down to like 52,000 or something like that, we might see even more bigger drop in network hash rate, which obviously at that point would be beneficial to the miners that have newer equipment, efficient equipment, and continuing to grow here going forward. Okay, so always keep that in mind here. next. So that is all that. Let's take a look at what's going on here with the updates that we have here from Bitfarms, Cipher, and obviously Riot providing their Q1 results here as well. So we'll try to get through these as fast as we can. First one at bat is Bitfarms provides operational update for 2024 April, and here's what we have here. So fleet upgrade review. With minor installations underway at Paso Pe and full site energization scheduled in May, the company's transformative fleet upgrade and expansion plan is on schedule to deliver 21 exahash and 21 watts per terahash in 2024. So they are still on schedule to do that. So that's great news there, right? That's something that we want to see. And then obviously Ben here, Chief Mining Officer, said in April, we fully upgraded 2 farms in Quebec with Bitmain T21 miners and improving energy efficiency by 51%. So they did swap out some older miners here, which is nice to see as well. And we'll look at the sheets that I have here for them. Those farms and 9% on the company-wide basis are minor upgrades and progressing at a rapid pace. With Bunker and Cowansville scheduled to be completed in May and Ledger in June. The Paso Pe energization is anticipated to contribute approximately 2 exahash at 23 watts per terahash. With these developments, we expect to reach approximately 10 exahash and 28 watts per terahash in May and remain on schedule to reach our mid-year target of 12 exahash and 25 watts per terahash in Q2 of 2024. We're in Q2 right now, so if they can get to 12 exahash by the end of this quarter, that's going to be fantastic for them. And it looks like they're still on schedule on doing that. In addition, in April, Bitfarms achieved a favorable outcome in Quebec, VAT treatment. That's their tax system there, securing a 23.7 million tax refund and reducing Canadian electricity costs and capital expenditures by 15% with the recovery of future VAT paid in the normal course of business. This decision provides both a near-term source of cash and long-term reduction in operating capital costs. So that's great news there for them. Okay. Mining review here, 269 BTC mined, 7 exahash at the end of the month. So they installed about 500 exahash, or not 500 exahash, 500 petahash, sorry. For the month here, watts per terahash efficiency, they're at 31. I have them at like 27 point something. So excuse me. So I must have the numbers off on some of the older equipment that they have because I have them at much lower joules per terahash, or maybe, well, that's watts per terahash. Maybe that's why. I'm looking at joules per terahash potentially. But that's kind of what I have them at. BTC sold 245, so they sold quite a bit here, obviously. And going down here, here's what I'll really love to see. The miners that are being swapped out. So at the Bunker installed 2,220 T21s. At Garlock installed 3,168 T21s, right? These are the newer miners, which is great. At Franham installed 1,710 T21s and 100 M53S plus hydro miners. I got all those included in my sheet here. At Paso Pe, installed 2,880 Bitmain T21 miners, installed 560 M53S plus hydro miners. And at Yaguzu, started construction of the facility. That's great news there. Obviously, they need to do that in order to grow to the 21 exahash they want to get to by the end of the year. And then we did have some curtailment, looks like maybe at Rio Cuarto, Argentina. One of the turbines was down for corrective maintenance for approximately 20 days, resulting in reduced power availability from 54 megawatts to 21 megawatts during the period. But it doesn't seem like that offset their operations that much. And you'll take when we take a look at the numbers for them in my spreadsheet, you'll see why. In Washington State, installed approximately 300 T21s, okay? And then down here, BTC held in Treasury increased to 830, so they did increase that a little bit here. And they increased their synthetic HODL by 85 long-dated BTC call options to 170 long-dated BTC call options at April 30th, 2024, okay? Those are all great news there. So it seems like Bitfarms is doing all the right things, right? We're still seeing that they're growing, and it looks like they're on track to get to where they're supposed to get to, which is nice to see. The only thing, obviously, that's kind of weighing on the stock right now is the ATM, right? We don't know when that's going to be done and over with. And basically the CEO replacement, when the new CEO is going to be announced and things like that. I think that's kind of what's weighing the stock down more so than anything else right now, okay? So here's Bitfarms right now. Shares outstanding. They have about 334 million shares outstanding. Market cap 688 million. Current hash rate 7 exahash. Future hash rate 21 exahash. Obviously a 3x from here, right? Huge growth going forward for them. And we can see that their performance over the last 12 weeks hasn't been great, but hasn't been great for a lot of miners as well. So that's not much to go by here. But they're down 19% from 12 weeks ago, 28% from 8 weeks ago, 13% from 4 weeks ago, and they were up last week, like a lot of miners were actually up last week. Looking at BTC mined here, the Lighter colored ones are what they actually mined, and then the darker colored ones are the difference from last month. So if we saw a decrease, you get negative 17. If you saw an increase, you saw obviously like here. So that's been coming down here. Obviously, that's kind of what we expected to happen because of the halving event that happened on April 19th. We knew that the decrease in BTC mine was going to be potentially worse than it was actually because we had a lot of transaction fees being added to it. So it wasn't actually that bad here for April. But in May, I'm guessing that's going to be closer to maybe half of what they mined in March, potentially. Okay. Revenue side of things here, revenue didn't dip too much, luckily, with the Bitcoin transaction fees being added to it. So they were down to 17.72 based on the Bitcoin average price in April and what they mined. Their best month was obviously in March, 19.3 million here. BTC HODL has continued to increase here slowly, but it's been increasing, which is nice to see as well. And then hash rate difference, you can see here that their hash rate has been growing ever since, well, compared to last year, they were at 5. They added basically 2 exahash here, and they're going to be adding a lot more going forward, which is nice to see. BTC sold here, they saw almost what they mined for the most part. They do HODL a little bit. BTC per exahash, that's been coming down for all the miners here, and they're at 38.4 based on my estimates here, numbers on them. BTC sold value, you can see that. Okay. Going down here to institutions and analysts, institutions did increase here to 173, but shares actually went down here a little bit to 76.2 million from 76.6 million, right? Percentage also went down to 21.54 from 22.97, and that might be the reason why the miners are kind of selling off a little bit here, potentially, or at least them in general. We still have the same buy ratings for them, 1 strong with 3 buy ratings for them, 0 hold, 0 underperform, 0 sells. Price targets is still $7 for the high, $4.75 for the average. Low is $4 for them. And going down here at their miners here, if we scroll over to April, I got rid of quite a few of the older miners that they had here, which were the 103 terahash miners here. So we got rid of those, these over here, and I think also got rid of, these over here as well. So these have been gotten rid of and replaced with the miners that I just spoke about earlier in the video just a second ago. And we installed, obviously, these more efficient T21 miners and these S21 Hydro miners as well in here. And that's how we got to basically 17.7 million here in revenue for them. I added about 2.1 million in BTC fees because I forgot to put this up here. I calculated all the BTC fees for each day here through the month and came up with about 12.21% in additional BTC transaction fees being added to the revenue side of things for the miners. Okay, so that's kind of how we're offsetting that going forward. And let's see here. They were operating for pretty much 30 days here, looks like in April, with some of these miners were like 23.51, 24 roughly. So pretty much full uptime here, which is nice to see. About 99, what is it, 98, 95%, something like that. Uptime based on the days of the month. Well, 30 days would be 100%. So I think they were operating pretty much close to 100% for the month. Oh, it's getting late and I'm getting tired. But that's kind of what we have here. Also, my joules per terahash, I have them at 27.68 right there, saying that they're at like 31. So I'm wondering if I have some of the data here on the miners here for these micro BT M31S pluses a little low. Maybe they should be a little bit higher, but those are at 3,400 watts. I thought that was pretty close to the numbers. I checked the manufacturer website and other sites like that. That's kind of what they were showing me. That's kind of what I was going by. So either my numbers are wrong or their numbers are wrong. Okay, but I'm guessing it's possibly my numbers are wrong on that because Ben's pretty good at keeping track of everything that he has. All right, so that's the numbers there as far as how everything worked out. We are at 7 exahash with them. Look at the numbers here. I do have them between $5.09 and $7.64, and we're using basically the current quarter that we're in, revenue for them, along with, if we look at it over here, you can see that we're using the, Q3, Q4 numbers, and Q1 numbers, which are estimated right now. I don't have the numbers for them yet. And then we're using, obviously, the current quarter that we're in, which is estimated based on just what their potential could be. The Bitcoin kind of stays where it's at right now and network hash rate and things like that. But those are things are going to change, right? So the current quarter that we're in is definitely going to change going forward, and we'll get that updated as time goes on. As we get like May's production, June's productions, we'll update that as well. Okay. But they're at $2. Well, I should have updated. They're at $1 something right now. Oh, where are they at? They're like $1.78. Yeah, $1.78. I need to update that. I will update those numbers here. So regardless, they are definitely way undervalued from where they really should be. Based on my numbers, based on also where the analysts are seeing things, they are undervalued, okay? But all good things here happening for them. Good growth going forward. Looks like they will have the ability to reach their growth targets, and they're on track to that. 10 exahash by the end of May, it looks like, and then 12 exahash by the end of June potentially. So a lot of growth here coming up here, which would be nice to see. But trust but verify, right? We need to see that actually happen. Okay, so that's Bitfarms in a nutshell. Let's take a look at Cipher. Cipher is going to be a lot quicker here. They didn't provide too much information here, just bare bones, which is nice. Cipher Mining announces April 2024 operational update. Here's what we have here. So BTC held, they increased their HODL to 2,033. Month-end operating hash rate is 7.7. And I believe that's just for their self-mining here. Their percentage, they do have joint venture as well, which they have 49% stake in. Going down here, this is one of their sites here. You can see that they're definitely in container mode here instead of building mode. Which, I mean, there's two ways to look at it, right? Containers are quick and easy and fast. You can get those deployed relatively quickly. Going with buildings and things like that takes a little bit more time. But maybe you have some better efficiencies there, maybe. I don't know. Okay, we have to definitely dive into it. So Bitcoin production and operational update for April. Cipher produced 296 BTC in April amidst average monthly network hash rate increasing 4.8%. As part of its regular treasury management process, Cipher sold 0 BTC in April, ending the month with a balance of 2,033 Bitcoin. And that's basically all we got here. That and that they reached 7 exahash. So not much to it. So let's take a look at Cipher here really quick. Cipher, if we go up here, has about 286 million shares outstanding. Stock price is not $4.96. It is at $3.69 right now, right? So I need to update those. Like I said, market cap is going to be obviously less, probably closer to 1.2 billion or so. Their performance over the last 12 weeks has actually been really good here compared to the other miners. So that's actually been pretty good. Current hash rate 6.75. I probably need to update that. Where is that coming from? 6.753. Probably should be using this number here, 7.7 exahash. There we go. Okay. Future hash rate 16.8. A lot of that's not going to come online until possibly in 2025, right? They do have the option to buy some more miners in this year if they build out the infrastructure in time for doing that. They do have the option to obviously buy more miners that would get them a higher hash rate this year even. That would be nice to see. Bitcoin HODL 2033. That's HODL to market cap is about 9.74% on that. And then when we look at their production here, it's been coming down, like we said, it's going to be coming down for a lot of the miners here with network hash rate increasing. And obviously the halving event here in April. So they're at 261. They're down about 16.9 from last month. Revenue, about 17.2 million here. This is for, I believe, only self-mining here. They were at 18.8 million in the prior month. I believe, no, this is for the combined here. If we look at it, let me see, where is that data coming from? So I want to make sure I give you guys the right numbers here. That is, yeah, revenue side of things. 17, okay, that's coming up there. I just have too many numbers in my head, and I want to make sure I give you guys the right numbers. And where are those numbers coming from? Those numbers are coming from, let's see here, 17. So that's Odessa. That's only for the self-mining, not the JV part of it. Okay. And the reason we don't do JV, unless they own 50% of it, it doesn't get reported as revenue. Okay, so that's the reason for it. BTC HODL, you can see that their HODL has been increasing quite nicely here ever since this, November of last year. They've been HODLing more and more. And the good thing about that is that I think they have the right strategy here, same as like Cleanspark. I think there's opportune times to HODL more so than others, right? When you're going into having an event, that's a pretty good time to do it. That way you can HODL that, get the benefit of Bitcoin going up in value. And as Bitcoin goes into a bull market, you want to start possibly selling those out a little bit. We'll see if they do that. Cleanspark did that pretty good job of it last cycle. And I'm expecting the same thing, maybe. We'll see. Right? They did a great job of it last time, but that's kind of what I would like to see is miners actually sell their HODL as Bitcoin price rallies really hard going forward. Okay. Total hash rate here at 7.7 here, so they increased by about 100 petahash here in the last month. BTC sold, I have -1. It's probably a rounding error on my part and what they're reporting and things like that. So they sold nothing, but that's -1 there. BTC per exahash efficiency 38, right? That's been coming down. That's kind of what we expect. BTC sold value going down here to institutions. Institutions have continued to increase here, which is nice to see. 178 here now in as of May. 46.3 million shares. So those have actually increased in Cipher from 43.45. and percentage increase to 15.89 from 14.93. We still have 2 strong buy ratings, 4 buy ratings, 1 hold rating, 0 underperforms, 0 sells, and the price targets stay the same at $6, $5, and $4 on all of those. Okay, going down here, we added approximately 2.35 million in BTC transaction fees for them for the month of April. And they were operating approximately 27.8 days out of the month here. And we did install some of these newer miners here as well to get them to the 7.7 exahash over here. Okay, that's owned. Basically, that's part of the Odessa, which they own at 6.7. And then you got Alvarez Bear and Chief, which they have about 1.9, but they're only about 49% of that is theirs for that, my understanding at least. Okay, going up here. They are currently at $3 and something. I have them between $5.29 to $7.94. They're undervalued right now, like a lot of miners are currently, based on where Bitcoin is and the miners itself. Okay, so they're doing all the right things. I think they're doing obviously the HODL in the right way, the way I see it at least, the way I've kind of digested it and analyzed it. I think there's opportune times to HODL more so than others, and definitely going into the having event is a good time to do it. And then as long as they sell it at, they don't have to sell it at the very, very peak, but if they sell close to it or dollar cost average out of it, I think that's a good way to do it. And then that way you can use those funds to grow into the bear market potentially. Okay, but overall, pretty good things going for Cipher right now. Right, they also have really good electricity costs as well. That's a bonus. All right, so that's it for Cipher. Let's look at Riot Platforms here. So Riot obviously provided their first quarter 2024 financial updates. They're the first one to provide them, right? So they're kind of the first ones out of the gate here. And they did take advantage of the FASB. They took advantage of, well, there's some good news here. I listened to the, not that one, this one. This one. That's what I want. I did listen to the conference call this morning. One thing that I really loved hearing is that they are getting out of not self-mining. That would have been bad. Hosting. They're getting out of hosting, which is really good because hosting was basically like a money pit for them for a long time. So it's nice to see that they got rid of those contracts there. I think they only have a small contract in place right now. They said it's immaterial to their operations and things like that. So that's great news there because that was a money pit. That was a money losing pit for them. So that's great news there. They're also obviously pretty bullish on Corsicana building that out going forward, which is nice to see as well and hear. And I pretty much heard the right things from them in the conference call. It's nice that they actually did a conference call because we haven't had one in a long time. And it's nice that they can actually do that and have investors or larger investment firms ask pretty good questions in there as well. So that was nice to see as well. Okay, so I think they're doing all the right things. Okay, going back down here. A couple of things. One thing that really I wasn't too happy about, right? So they reported selling general administrative expenses during the quarter totaled $57.7 million. That's high. I mean, that's really high. And mainly because of an increase in $12.7 million relative to the same period in 2023. But the increase was primarily due to the increase in stock compensation expense of $34.3 million related to new grants under our long-term incentive program. Okay. Wow. That's a lot, right? $34.3 million. Could they? I don't know how this all works. I'm not a financial expert on this. So are those warrants or those grants just basically added in there at that point, and then they obviously I think vest over a certain period of time? That's my understanding of it. Could they have done it over time? I don't know. I think that would have been much better, but with the grants being so high, 34, I mean, that's more than half of the expense here, right? And SG&A. So looking at it that way, it's like, why couldn't they just extend that out over a couple of quarters, a year or two, or something like that? Why lump it all in there all at once? But that's just my thoughts on it. That's the one thing that I didn't really like here. Let's see, long-term compensation expense of $4.4 million as a result of hiring additional employees. That's fine. If you're hiring additional employees to support your operations and things like that, that's understandable. But this $34.3 million, obviously, it looks kind of bad. Increased legal and professional fees of $2.5 million primarily related to ongoing litigation and public company compliance, and $3.6 million for other costs primarily attributable to ongoing growth. Okay, that's fine. If you're growing, fine. We expect some additional costs here. But the compensation thing, that doesn't look good, right? It doesn't have a good optic on it. Going down here, you can see their facility here, of course, kind of being built out. I mean, this thing is massive. And then you got these, I think these are the coolers for the immersion cooling system. You can see they got already 8 of those in, right? So they're about, what is that? Maybe not even a quarter, maybe a quarter, a little less than a quarter, like 20% built out right now, based on what they can do on this picture at least. I mean, they still have a ways to go here before everything is plugged into this one building. They have another building here getting ready to go, and another building as well. I mean, these things are massive here. So that's great news there that they obviously have good growth here. And then we do have some updates on the ATM offering here as well, which I tried to include best I could as far as the number of shares that they possibly have right now. And we'll take a look at the numbers there in a second here. But basically, here's what they stated. In February 2024, the company registered an offering under its at-the-market equity offering program, under which it could offer and sell up to 750 million shares in the company's common stock. During the 3 months ended March 31st, the company received a net proceeds of $345.7 million for the sale of 26.169 million shares of the common stock at weighted average at $13.50 per share. And then subsequent to March 31st and through April 30th, the company received net proceeds of approximately $154.1 million through the sale of 14.7 million shares of common stock weighted at an average of $10.63. So they've obviously been pulling pretty hard on that ATM. And I included these numbers here in addition to what they reported at the end of Q4. All right, so I went back to Q4, added those numbers into it, and hopefully we'll get pretty close numbers. I don't know if they're going to be exact, but at least we'll give it better number, I think, than if we use the number that they reported when they reported the Q4 numbers, which was like when was that? In March, I think that they reported that potentially. Okay, so let's take a look at Riot here really quick here. Obviously, we don't have a production update for them. We do only have this. We'll get into this number here in a second here. But current assets here increased, or actually, let me see here. They actually decreased, and here's the reason why. They took out digital currency numbers here and they put them down below into total current and long-term assets, I guess you could say, instead of current assets. So that's the change there. That's why that number is lower. So you got 785 million from 1 billion basically. Cash on hand and actually increased to 688 million from 587. So that's good there. So they got plenty of cash. What else did we change here? Accounts receivable is down to 14.1 from 24. Contract assets is down to 13 from 15. And then prepaid expenses is up 33 from 29. That's fine. So overall, it's all good there. And then we had total assets increased to 2.6 million from 2 billion. So that's good there. And like I said, the main thing is Bitcoin value here of 605 million here at the end of Q2 or Q1, sorry, on that number. Okay. Going down here, liabilities actually decreased to 92 million from 121 million. So that's good there. Total liabilities also decreased to 135 million from 163 million. That's fine there as well. And going down here, total stockholder equity, liabilities and I'm getting old. I'm getting tired. Total liabilities and stockholder equity increased to 2.6 billion from 2 billion roughly, right? And then here we go. Nice thing, like I said in the beginning here, was hosting. Hosting is pretty much done and over with. They got rid of it. Like I said, it was a money pit. It's nice to see that that is gone here. So mining brought in 74.5 million here in revenue here, which is a nice increase from the 16 million that they had in Q4. And engineering was actually down to 4.6 million to 13.3. Jason talked about it, that they have, I think, 13 million in back orders or something like that on projects that they should get. Believe they said in Q2. All right, so that should improve there. The main thing for that was, I think, supply chains issues on that one. Okay, so that's not a big deal. I mean, the big thing here is obviously Bitcoin mining for us. And then obviously self-mining of revenue represent 94%, right? Based on that, what else do we have here? Cost of revenues. So cost of revenues actually went up to 41 million here from 26.6. And I think that's mainly because they are done with hosting. They're putting everything back into the self-mining side of things, where they were putting some of the costs into the hosting as well because they were hosting their own machines. On that side of things, engineering obviously was down. That's to be expected there. Like I said, selling and general administrative was up 57 million from 38.7. We talked about this here prior. Most of it is basically stock-based compensation. And that would have driven that down to probably below, what, 20 some odd million, which would have been really, really good here compared to 38 million that they had here. Let's see here. Change in fair value Bitcoin, right? 234 million. So that's basically where Bitcoin was valued at the end of December to where it was at the end of March, right? Bitcoin obviously went up in value. They're deducting that from here to get EPS on it, positive EPS. Curtailment credits was pretty much the same as it was in Q4, 5.1 million from 5 million here. So pretty close to that. Nothing else really happened there. Let's see here. Self-mining gross profit margin was about 44.9. So that's actually down a little bit here from 48. Operating expenses, what else do we have here? Income loss, 211 million gain instead of 79 million. So that's nice there. And then they ended up basically being 81 or 82, 81 cents EPS per share. And that's kind of what we were expecting, right? In the video, what was the last video I did? Or the video prior, we went over what the FASB implications could be on the miners if they took advantage of it. And I think I had Bitfarms at that point, or not Bitfarms, Riot. At that point, much higher here. Let me see, FASB here at $1. Let's see, where's Riot? Riot, I had them $1.08, right? And I said at that point, that's just for the appreciation Bitcoin value going up on the Bitcoin that they had from one point to the next point. What is that appreciation on that, and what that could actually be for earnings per share? Obviously, we didn't take into account in here any of the costs associated with it, general administrative costs, operating costs, anything like that. This was just straight on Bitcoin HODL. And we're at $1.08. They came in at, obviously, at 81, 82 cents, right? So great quarter here. The concern with all these miners, obviously with the FASB rules, is that eventually, if Bitcoin goes down here this quarter, they're going to have a loss on their hands, right? Because you're reevaluating Bitcoin at each interval. So if Bitcoin's going up from beginning of quarter to end of quarter, that's great. But if Bitcoin's going down from beginning of quarter to end of quarter, that's going to have possibly a negative impact on the miners as well. But I think most investors are looking at the miners as more of a growth play. Where is their hash rate growing? The added FASB rules allowing the miners to value the Bitcoin properly is just a benefit on top of it, I think, right? So, I mean, if you look at their numbers here, they came in, what do they have? 81 cents, 82 cents on the EPS, right? Basically diluted. If you use a simple multiple of 20 PE, price earnings multiple, they should be at what? $16 at that point. They're currently at, Riot is at like $9 or something like that. Let's see, Riot, yeah, $9.82. They're definitely undervalued based on that. The concern here obviously is Bitcoin halving, which we are now past, Bitcoin price staying flat or going down. That's obviously going to result in lower revenues. And that's kind of what we have to deal with here on the miners, being invested in them, right? There's a lot of what ifs, a lot of unknowns, things like that. And like I said, right now they're having between $7.96 and $11.93, but I need to see their numbers for April. And then I'll get that updated here for the last current quarter, which we're in right now, which is Q2, and the last 3 quarters as well, which I probably could update now as well. Let's do that. Why don't we do that, see how that actually shakes up. So I actually do have that here. I'm using the last 3 quarters. So I was off by 3.6% on the numbers here for the quarter. So we are actually using those numbers here for them. And then let's see the current quarter that we're in. I'm guessing somewhere around 50 million. Yeah. So, okay. So that is the latest numbers here. So 796 to 1193. Being at P, so fairly valued to maybe undervalued based on their future growth going forward. Big thing is if they grow at Corsicana, what is there going to be uptime at that facility? If it's much better than what it is at Rockdale, that's going to be great. Okay. All right. I think we went through everything here on them. We'll obviously update this for the month of April when they do provide the operational update, which I'm guessing will be in a couple of days here. But other than that, we are done with the sheet here. So as always, my little sales pitch here. Access to all my spreadsheets that I do is available through Patreon members. That is, there's a link down in the description in the video of each video that I do. And that's $8 a month. You might be able to find a spot that's at $5 or $4, and then you get access to Discord as well. And that's my little sales pitch here. So it's mainly because of you guys here, the viewers and the Patreon members and the YouTube members, that really, really help support this channel. And I greatly appreciate you guys coming here to watch this and do all this stuff with me. Okay, so let's get into the Q&A side of things. We're already going, what, about 45 minutes in. I knew it was going to be a long one today. So let's get into the Q&A side of things here. We'll take your guys' questions, see if you guys have anything. I'm going to take a sip of water because my throat is getting dry. And also, this is delayed about 15 seconds or so, 15, 20 seconds. So when you do put in your question, just be patient. I will get to all your questions. I do, every time I do these, I do go through all the questions here for you guys. So if it takes us another half an hour, we have a timer here at 10 minutes, but we always go much longer. So let's see if you guys have any questions here. And I'm not seeing anything. This would be like one of the first times you guys didn't have any questions. I think I've educated you guys maybe too much. You guys could maybe educate me as well. Well, we'll give it a couple more seconds here, see if we have any questions from you guys. We obviously have quite a few people watching, so unless you guys all fell asleep already. Let's see. No questions. Let's see if there's any. Okay. All right, first question, here we go. So, Jeffrey Murphy helped Bitfarms get out of debt. What kind of CEO do you need to look for now? Well, obviously one with probably, gosh, I mean, they're all over the place here in Canada, United States, and Paraguay, Argentina. So you need somebody that has multi-jurisdictional experience, possibly, right? Dealing with different jurisdictions and things like that. You need somebody that has that. And you need somebody that's obviously has experience with Bitcoin, at least in some form, or at least is knowledgeable in what's going on with it and the cycles and the way things have happened in the past and what's needed to go forward. And I'll be honest with you, I'm really surprised that they haven't asked, maybe they did, but I'm surprised that they haven't asked Ben to be their CEO. I think Ben would be a fantastic CEO from there. If you could pick somebody from within your operations that knows your operations more than anybody else, I think Ben would be a fantastic CEO there. But we'll see what they come up with on that. But that's kind of what I would be looking for. Let's see here. Do you think it was a good time to start mining after the having just now, I guess? I mean, if you're self-mining at home or something like that on a pool, probably not the best time to do it. I mean, depending on the machines that you have. But the miners, obviously, what you want to do is you want to build out in the bear market to get into the bull run, right? So if you built out before the halving event, that probably was maybe more ideal. But if you're just starting out now, depending on your power cost, there's a lot of things that go into it. Power costs, what did you pay for your miners? What, all these other things that go into it to really figure out if it's a good time or not. Sebastian, your portfolio solely miners. For the most part, yeah, if you're looking at stocks, I have 100 shares of Rivian right now. That's the only outlier out of the bunch. Other than that, Cleanspark is my biggest one, followed by Bitfarms, and then followed by IREN right now. Those are all in my stock portfolio. If we look at my 401k plan, I have WGMI, BitQ as well in there, and I do have some other funds in there that are like less than 2% of the fund. So because I need to maintain 10%, I can only maintain 10% on I can't remember what it's called now. 10% in the fund or in the 401k can be with funds, and the rest can be in things I can invest in, like ETFs. That's the way it goes. Okay. Let's see. Instead of starting back in December, I mean, okay, yeah. So yeah, if you were mining, I think it would have been probably better off mining in December. Network hash rate was much lower. Bitcoin price was lower too, but at that point, you were also mining more Bitcoin at that point, right? So you gotta look at all those things happening here going forward. Okay, I think I kind of spelled it out. If not, what else are you in? I also have crypto, Bitcoin, Dogecoin, Ethereum. What else is there? Hedera, Hashgraph, Cardano, right? Those are kind of the ones that I'm in there. But once those get back to me being green on those, I'm selling out of those. Except for Bitcoin and Ethereum, I'll probably continue to hold those. But altcoins, I'm all good. Let's see your question. What are your thoughts on the little to zero ETF inflows? Okay. The ETFs are basically, they're spot Bitcoin ETF, right? So if people are buying into them, they're going to be buying Bitcoin. if investors are selling out of them, they're going to be selling Bitcoin because they need to have that basically equilibrium between the two, right? So that's kind of to be expected. So it's kind of like people buying Bitcoin and then selling Bitcoin because Bitcoin's going down in price. We're seeing the same thing happening here with the ETFs. That's to be expected. It's not like the investors would buy into the ETF, right? And then the ETF would actually hold all those Bitcoin, even though people were selling out of that ETF, right? No, they need to keep equilibrium going forward. So I'm not worried about it. I think it's just Bitcoin going down in price. People are getting out potentially, right? They're maybe a little afraid, whatever it might be, a little fear in the market. That's kind of what's happening here. Hi, Sebastian. I'm worried about my Bitfarms position. Do you think it will recover by year end? Thank you. Yes, I definitely think it will recover by year end. Unless Bitcoin goes down to like 30,000, 20,000 by the year end, and then all of our positions in any of the miners are pretty much done for, which would not be good, great, right? I mean, that's kind of like the worst case scenario, Bitcoin going down to 20,000 by the end of the year. Boy, that would be not good. I'll just leave it at that. I could use a lot of swear words and expletives to underscore my feelings on that, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think with the supply shock, everything else, we're having more adoption, everything else, Bitcoin will eventually pull up. Sometimes it might take until like maybe the fall period, right? We have this event where sell in May and go away. Basically, for the summer months, people are traveling, vacationing, kids are at home. People are not investing as much as they would be otherwise. And then they start getting back into it much heavier in the fall again. So that's kind of the way I'm looking at it. Let's see. Let's see. Sebastian, are you confident about Bitfarms and Riot to be 4x to 5x? I mean, yeah. I mean, if you think Bitcoin's going to go up to at least, let's say Bitcoin goes up 2x from here, right? It's at 57,000. That'd be 114,000 right now. I think the miners at that point will do at least a 3x to potentially 5x at that point, because they are a leverage play on Bitcoin, especially the ones that are growing nicely, right? I think they will do much better. And then if you think Bitcoin's going to go up to like 150,000, 200,000, well, then the miners could do even better at that point as well. So I do think it's all dependent on Bitcoin. And like I said just a second ago, if Bitcoin goes down, all bets are off, right? All the money that we put into these miners here, or that I put in and you guys have put into it, they're going to be, pennies at that point. But I don't think that's going to happen. Let's see. Any projections on what HP computers could impact miners' value long-term, 1 or 2 years down the road? So you're talking about like high-performance computers, impact on the value of so AI, right? So we have Bit Digital, IREN getting into it, Cipher potentially getting into it, Hive, Hut 8 getting into all that. I don't know, right? It's especially the example here, the best example is obviously Bit Digital. Bit Digital has a customer right now where that's paying them $50 million a year to basically operate those H100s, or I think it's H100 servers for their AI stuff. If that is profitable, and that's a big if, right? Right now we're waiting on Bit Digital to report their Q1 results to see how profitable is that. If it's more than 30%, I think that would be great. If it's less than that, and you're looking at like 15% profitability at that point, well, it's not that big of a deal, right? 50 million at 15%, you're looking at approximately, what is that going to be? 7 million in revenue, right? On top of what you're Bitcoin mining. So Bitcoin mining might be actually better, especially if Bitcoin price goes up in value. So we have to see. We have to see what those numbers look like. Question, do you like BitQ over WGMI? Recently, BitQ has been doing better than WGMI has been doing. I got into both last year in January when the company I work for actually allowed us to get into ETFs. I pulled 90% of the value that I had in my 401k into BitQ and WGMI. WGMI was my bigger one. I put in, I think, like 85% into it based on the numbers here. But recently, I'm seeing that BitQ has actually done pretty good here, or at least outperformed WGMI. So we'll see how it goes going forward. We got time. I got time. We're still 12 to 18 months out before maybe the top in Bitcoin. And at that point, I think both will do really well going forward. So we'll see. Sebastian, thanks for the space talk today. Where can I get a miner if I want to mine BTC just to see what this is? AliExpress has some miners, anything local, or it's best to build a PC myself. Well, you can't build a PC for mining Bitcoin. You need a ASIC, application-specific integrated chip miner, to mine Bitcoin right now. It used to be you could mine Bitcoin on CPU chips, on GPUs, on things like that, and eventually it has morphed. It has grown into these really specific chips that just really do that. Best way to do it, if you're going to do it, is probably buy directly from Bitmain, right? Try to get at least the most efficient miner that you can for the money. You're going to be overpaying what the miners are paying for them because you're not buying in volume, right? Volume obviously gives you a lot better price. There's other sites that you can look into that are, depending where you are located at. In the United States, there's a couple of sites that buy the machines from Bitmain in larger volumes to get a little bit of a price, but you're going to pay a premium for it as well because they have to make money on it. So I've run the numbers in the past here on does it make sense to mine Bitcoin or to actually invest in Bitcoin miners? And my answer was actually, when I did the analysis, it's actually easier and better to invest in Bitcoin miners, public ones, than trying to mine yourself. But if you're trying to do it yourself, you can buy these little boards here that are solo miners, right? They plug into your computer. They're like USB miners, basically. You plug them into your computer. You can try that and learn about it that way. You can try running your own node on your computer as well, if you have the space on it. So there's a lot of ways you can learn how this all works. Let's see here. Do you think the overall market FUD today hurt Riot's earnings today? Yeah, I think so. I think with Bitcoin coming down, if it was the other way around, Bitcoin going up, I think Riot would have been, a rocket ship today. But just the overall market sentiment definitely did hurt them today, right? We saw a Cleanspark report there was at the end of Q4, so end of December, but their Q1 numbers, and they were positive, and then stock took off at that point, right? So I would have kind of expected the same thing here with Riot, but with the market conditions that we have right now, it's kind of what it is right now. Not much we can do about it. Let's see. What about concerns that Bitcoin will be outlawed? Are there any credible concerns? No. How do you outlaw something that's decentralized? Right? There is no CEO there. There is no corporation that runs it. You do have, obviously, Bitcoin miners, so you could have a ban on Bitcoin miners like we saw in China a couple years back, right? But then all those miners are basically migrated to the United States, what was it, Kazakhstan and like Russia or something like that, right? So that's always going to happen, or I shouldn't say it always happens, but if there's a ban, the miners will find a place, someplace else that's more accommodating to what they're doing. So I don't see that happening. Let's see here. Question, can you recommend a reliable cold wallet? Also, what happens if that cold wallet breaks? Okay, so I've been using Ledger for the last 6-7 years now, since 2017. That's kind of where I store my Bitcoin at. I've never had issues with it. I don't believe it's ever gotten hacked. So that's Ledger's one. If that breaks, if that little wallet does actually break on you, you still have your seed phrase. That's 24 words, right? Don't share that with anybody. Make sure it's safe. Possibly take measures to protect it, right? You don't want that getting destroyed through a fire or whatnot, your computer going down. Don't put it on your computer for whatever reason. You want it to be a physical thing that you can store those seed phrases on. It's 24 words. If you have those, you can gain access back into your wallet and get the Bitcoin that way. So you have to do a little bit more research, but that's the way I would go. Let's see, I already covered that question. Let's see here. Question, do you think we need rate cuts and the dollar to weaken for BTC to trade up to 100,000? I don't know if the dollar has to weaken. I've heard that before a couple of times, especially. But Bitcoin's, been going up whether the dollar is weak or not in the past. I think interest rates going down is a boom for what do they call it? Not speculative, but risk on assets, right? So that would help, but I don't think it's necessary. I mean, we've had high interest rates here, and Bitcoin's gone up from last year from, what was it, 20 some odd thousand, 15,000, all the way up to 70 some thousand, right? So we really don't need that to go up. I think we just need demand, continue to go forward. We need people buying into it. And with the supply shock after the halving event, I think it's just going to continue going forward. But we do have these, right? You got big money in this space right now. They're going to be manipulating the hell out of it to get people with weak hands to sell out so they can buy much lower and pump the stock back up, or the price of Bitcoin, the stocks, and everything else. So they're kind of counting on it. They're right. Let's see. Should I invest in Wolf? Is it a good stock? If not, which one? Wolf is a good stock. They have some debt that they're dealing with. They're trying to get that paid off. But there might be better ones out there, right? They have also really good cost of electricity and things like that. They're doing all the right things right now. They're paying off the debt, all the right things, but you got to do your research, right? I'm looking at stocks that are going to be growing handsomely, nicely going into 2024 with a hash rate, things like that. That's where I think the money flow is going to be into. I could be wrong on that. You got to do the research on that. Let's see. Do you have any price targets for this bull run of Bitcoin? My original price targets from like a year and a half ago was 180,000 on Bitcoin. This was before the ETFs and everything else that got added on top of it. So some are saying that we could go much higher than that. I would be honestly happy if Bitcoin goes up to 180,000. If it does, and miners will do really well at that point as well, I believe. But if we go beyond that, I think that's all gravy. Really don't know. I mean, we got Kathy Wood saying that Bitcoin's going to, millions or something like that. Others are saying that it's going to go much higher to 500,000 or something like that. We'll have to see that. All right. If it happens, great. If it doesn't, make sure that you take profits when you can. Let's see. Do you think the Hong Kong spot Bitcoin ETFs will push price higher for Bitcoin? Potentially, right? We had obviously the US ETFs as well. In the beginning, it was basically sell the news type event. Maybe that's kind of what we're seeing here with this Hong Kong ETFs as well. Sell the news event. And then maybe a week, 2, 3, 4 weeks out, maybe things will start to reverse that way. I mean, it's anybody's guess right now. Nobody has a crystal ball as far as where things are going to go. Why did Riot go up from $10 to $16 during our bull run? Mainly because Bitcoin was going up at that point, I think. If you're talking about the last in 2023, right? Last year, where we went up. I think that might be it. It spikes with Bitcoin and things like that. That's mainly why. Let's see. Already covered this one. Question: what about concerns about Bitcoin being outlawed? No, it's not on my radar. Let's see. Concerned about Cleanspark dilution. The 850, was it 850 million, I think, or 800 million? 800 million. ATM that they have. There's obviously concern with it. We've seen it with other miners. We've seen it with them themselves. Whenever there's an ATM, investors get concerned about the dilution. Their stock price is pretty high, so that means they're going to dilute less than they would if the stock price was at $5, something like that. So, and then they also have a track record of really good growth here. So I don't think that should be as a concern going forward, as long as it's accretive to investors. Let's see here. What is your exit strategy? How and when will you start selling? I'll start probably selling when Bitcoin starts getting closer to 100,000, past 100,000, something like that. We'll have to see. We'll have to take a look at the charts, right? Where is the RSI? Where is the stock to flow model? Where is all this stuff into it? Take all that and stuff into consideration, because it's not just one thing that's going to tell us that we are possibly at the peak, right? And then I'm going to start dollar cost averaging in when that does happen, right? I'm not going to get the exact top on it, because nobody's going to be able to get, well, somebody might be able to get the exact top, but I'm not going to be able to do it. So I'm just going to dollar cost average out 5% here, 10% here, 5% there. As things go up and obviously my gains are much better, I'll start dollar cost averaging out at that point. Let's see here. Do you see a potential merger in these mining companies? Not right now. I don't think anybody wants to merge with anybody or buy anybody out. It just doesn't make any sense to them. They can buy machines, build infrastructure much cheaper than it would be for merging or buying somebody out. The only thing I could see is maybe people buying or companies buying other companies' assets. So infrastructure, mining farms or infrastructure, buildings, things like that. But that's about it. Let's see. Post-halving in down BTC markets, a lot of private miners will go bankrupt, even some public ones. Do you think that will be this time for some miners to buy these cheap to increase their hash rate? Well, that's kind of the thought process behind Cleanspark, others as well. They were looking for possibly having distressed assets after the halving event, right? Miners that aren't profitable are possibly going into bankruptcy or something like that. They would actually pick those up. With Bitcoin price being up where it's at right now, being higher than the previous high before the halving event, that kind of threw in a wrench a little bit on all of this stuff. But as we were seeing that the hash price has been coming down, it's going to make some of the miners that have older equipment, like the 80, 90 terahash miners, even some 100 terahash miners, if depending on their power costs, those are going to be coming offline here. And at that point, the miners that are running those might be like, let's throw in the towel. We're done here. We don't have any further cash to invest into this to grow it further. And that's where you're going to probably see the other miners that are well qualified, have liquid assets, have access to cash, will scoop in and buy those at maybe somewhat distressed price, but we'll have to see. Thoughts on Cipher? I like Cipher. The only thing I would like to see is more growth this year instead of next year. They do have the possibility to grow more this year if they build out infrastructure. So that's kind of the way I would look at it. Really, 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 really low cost of electricity, which is nice as well. Let's see. Hi, Sebastian. With Bitfarms sitting at about 600 million market cap, why wouldn't a company like Mara be interested in taking them out? Because it's not going to be sold for 600 million. They're going to be wanting 1.2 billion, if not more, right? They're going to want a premium on it because they have a roadway to get to 21 exahash, right? You got to account for all that as well. And investors are not going to vote for something that's 10% premium on it. They're going to want a 40, 50% premium on it at the very least, I would imagine, on it. So that's why I wouldn't see anybody buying anybody else out. And I think I'm catching up here to some of your guys' questions here. I already did that one. Okay. Sebastian, are there any constraints tied to grid capacities that would, on aggregate, limit the growth of BTC via bottleneck or miner growth? Well, I mean, there's really no. I mean, there's limits to energy constraints, right? There's only so much energy out there, but there's also a lot of energy that's not utilized, right? And a lot of these companies, not only the miners, but also like Amazon, Microsoft, Google, they're all looking for all this kind of energy here to get access to it, right? But you just got to find it. So there's still plenty around the world where there's energy that's in surplus right now. That's just not being utilized all the time. But the big thing is, I don't think BTC price is driven by network hash rate growth. I think it's driven by adoption, by the decrease in Bitcoin amount being rewarded or basically given out each day, right? That's what's kind of driving the price there. The miners at times are not profitable. At times they are profitable, greatly profitable. So I don't really think it matters on how many miners there are out mining for Bitcoin price to go up. If that makes sense. Let's see. What do you think about Mara's reliability to mine? They report hash rate, but they are also hit with offline issues. Yeah, I mean, they're having issues with facilities. We're hoping that they can get those resolved here. I haven't looked at their Mara pool here lately to see how they're mining. But in January, February, and March, their uptime was like 60-some percent, 70%, something like that, which was not great. Obviously, they could have been mining a heck of a lot more money at that point, which is unfortunate because we had the halving event happening in April. They are saying that they're going to get to 50 exahash this year, right? That's their goal, which is obviously a pretty good goal for them, being that they're at like 27, 28 exahash right now. But the big thing is obviously operations, uptime, things like that, because you can get to 50 exahash, but if you're operating in 25 exahash, what's the point of getting 50 exahash if you can't even run, that properly? So they got a lot of work to go forward. If they can resolve those things, I think the stock is going to do great going forward. Let's see. Is this the time to invest 100% in Bitcoin mining stocks instead of other stocks? I mean, that is your call there. they're more volatile, they're more risky, right? They have bigger swings up and down more frequently than other stocks do. So you got to really have the stomach for it, and you really have to know what you're getting into as well. So you got to do a lot of research on that side of things. Kevin, thank you so much for the super chat. Appreciate it. Let's see here. What miners disappoint you the most is what I meant to write. Okay, so the miners that disappoint me the most, going back historically, right? That has been probably Marathon with their operations side of things. It seems like they have all this huge potential with their growth and everything else, but their operations, for whatever reason, one reason or another, or just bad decisions on their parts and things like that, that they can't get consistently have consistent uptime, basically, right? So Marathon has been obviously quite disappointing. I would have loved to have gotten into them, but based on the historical numbers that we've seen from them, operational side of things like that, I just couldn't get into them. I saw other miners doing much better at that point. That's why I got into those. Riot, same thing, right? They have 12 exahash, but they're operating like they have only 8 exahash because of issues with their Rockdale facility and the immersion cooling that they had issues with there. So there's that thing. The other one is Hut 8. Hut 8 had so much potential there. They had a huge HODL stack that they just kind of wasted. The management did the wrong things there. That was a disappointment as well. Who else? Bitfarms disappointed me as well, right? Bitfarms disappointed me when, they bought Bitcoin at like 34, 40,000 or something like that, and then had to sell it at 20-some thousand. They just made some mistakes there. So there's quite a few companies that have made mistakes, but as long as they fix those mistakes, they learn from those mistakes, I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt just by the simple fact that I invested back in Bitfarms, right? After the fact. Who else? Hut 8. I already talked about Hut 8. Hut 8 was one of them. Hive. Hive was another one. Hive, I got into 2017, 2018. I thought they would do very, very well being in, where they at? Sweden, Iceland, and Canada. I thought they could possibly be one of the top miners, but they're, happy with having 1% of the network hash rate. So they're not looking really for growth, but they're very efficient and things like that. So there's just those types of miners that kind of upset me or disappointed me a little bit. I think they could have done better. Let's see here. Hive has last shares outstanding as compared to other miners. Also, they are undervalued. Do you think they can 10x from here? It might be a little tough for them because they're only looking to get to 1% of the network hash rate. So if the network hash is at 600 exahash, they're looking to be at 6 exahash. If the network hash is at 900 exahash, they're looking to be at 9 exahash. That's kind of their philosophy there, which is unfortunate. I just spoke about them here shortly. So I don't know. It's going to be tough. I think they will underperform the other miners that are growing much, much faster and much higher in hash rate than they are. But we'll see, right? They're also working on the AI side of things. Could that be a big play for them? Possibly. We'll have to see how they get valued on them. Let's see. Question. Okay. Especially, it's also about timing. They have to pay a premium to buy someone out by lead time to build out a facility and plug in miners also. And yeah, it's a convincing buying. Yeah. I mean, miners like Cleanspark. Cleanspark has a huge inflow of miners coming up here that they purchased, but they need to buy, obviously, operations or buy buildings, build out infrastructure, and things like that. They're going to definitely pay possibly a premium on that if Bitcoin price stays where it's at, and we don't have a lot of distressed assets as well. Let's see. What is the end game for these miners to slowly diversify away from self-mining as each having makes it increasingly? No. The end goal is here scale. Scale fixes all issues. If you can get to scale where you're making, let's just say, any miner A, right? Miner A gets to 50 exahash, and they have fixed costs for operations, SG&A, things like that, at, let's just say, overall, they get to 50 exahash. So let's just say that they have cost of 50 million, right? For somebody at 50 million, and then let's say they're making 400 million a year on top of it, for example, right? Scale is going to be much better at that point than somebody that's at 10 exahash, but they have those costs, those fixed costs, well, not really fixed costs, but those things will always go up and down. But more or less overhead costs at 20 million or something like that, right? That's going to be much more, how can I put this? I've thought about this before, and it's scale. You really need scale in order to combat the SG&A costs, the operational costs, and everything else. If you can get to scale on that, you will do much better, because at that point, with each halving cycle and things like that, you can, with your own scale, you can basically double your hash rate without getting new facilities and things like that, just by replacing the old machines, getting newer ones at that point. So that's why I'm saying scale is the main important thing. I hope that kind of makes sense. Let's see. Especially if you had to put a percent odd on Bitfarms to reach $5 USD this year, would it be 50-50? No, it would be much higher than that. I think, well, it depends on Bitcoin again, right? So that's the big thing here. Bitcoin stays flat or goes down, that's not going to happen. But if Bitcoin goes up to 100,000 this year, potentially, then I think it's definitely possible for Bitcoin or Bitfarms to get to that, if not higher. Okay. Excuse me. Why is Cleanspark most preferred stock over Riot? Execution, uptime, efficiencies, basically those are those things. Growth also, right? They're looking to get to 32 exahash this year, potentially, if they can pull it off. They're getting to 20 exahash by the end of Q2, I believe. That's their goal. So that's kind of why. They've also been basically a darling here, going from 100 petahash at the beginning of 2021 all the way to, what are they at now, 16 something exahash, just what, 3 years later? Let's see. How your strategy will look like to go out of the marked in detail when we reach a certain price level. Thanks. The strategy is going to be just a dollar cost average out, right? I don't know where the top's going to be, but we'll have to look at other things, other graphs, other metrics on Bitcoin, where that's at, where inflows are going into the ETFs. What's going on there? We'll have to take a look at institutions. Are they starting to sell out of the miners as well, right? That could be a cue that we may be getting close to the top or at the top at that point. So there's a lot of things that we need to keep an eye on when that happens. Okay. I think I caught up to all your guys' questions here. So a lot. We've been going for an hour and 15 minutes rough here today. So I think we're going to call it a day. I don't see anything else popping up here. It's getting late. So again, be patient. Do your due diligence on these miners here. They're very volatile. And also, if you have conviction in some of these guys here, even if you're down on them, possibly dollar cost average into them, you might do a lot better going forward. Otherwise, if you're trading them, right, it's going to be tough. You're not always going to get the bottoms. You're not always going to get the tops on them. Do your best that you can do, I guess you could say. And that's basically it. But just be patient, and I think things will do much better going forward. But we just have to be patient, unfortunately. Okay, so that's it. Thank you so much to you guys for coming in to watch this video. Greatly appreciate it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe. Helps me out tremendously. We'll see what happens tomorrow. We should probably get Cleanspark reporting, some other miners reporting as well. They're usually like 1 or 2 days behind there. We'll see what happens there. And then we have obviously a slew of quarterly results as well happening this week and next week. I don't know so much this week, but I believe next week we have more coming up. Okay, that's it. Hope you guys have a great night. I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then.